All right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Liticast. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you're coming at us from our website, from YouTube, from LinkedIn, Facebook, however you got here, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all being here. We have a great guest today, and I'm really excited. It's great when it's someone who's in the industry and really knows their stuff, but also is an old friend. So Dave Lehman, who's president and COO of BirdEye, is joining us today. Dave and I worked together at Salesforce and probably shared a few cocktails at some point, I'm sure. Probably don't remember them very much, but Dave, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you having you here today.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited to spend some time with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So for those unfamiliar, so really what BirdEye does is, they understand the reputational management component of your business. They help you really from a marketing perspective, but also really beyond that. They're really trying to understand, they understand your business and help your customers understand your business better and help you react not only quickly, but in a very smart way. So we're going to get into that. But Dave, again, you have a very strong history in the technology space. You've been around the block as I have. Just give us a little bit of what you're doing now, what you're seeing out there, what BirdEye is really all about, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, appreciate you pulling me in here. I think you and I got reconnected again, 6 or so months ago when I saw where you were, and I just joined BirdEye and sort of saw the power of what your platform could do in conjunction with ours. And as you mentioned, really BirdEye is focused on customer experience and client experience, especially in the legal space. How do we help you from the first time somebody is looking for a lawyer? How do you get engaged with them? How do you be found by them? How do you then get chosen by them? And then how do you really be the best law firm you can be to get more of those referrals, get more of those reviews going? It sort of becomes this great vicious cycle of a flywheel, we call it, for building up your client base.
Yeah, that's excellent. So what's interesting, and for guys like us who've been around, to see this sort of evolution of really buyer behavior and sort of the demographic change that's happened and how people in many ways have almost bought before they've even talked to anybody or really, right? I mean, they almost know more about you than you know about yourself before you've even engaged with them. So, it's super important to be aware of that. Our law firm clients would admittedly say that they've been a step or a step and a half behind in that regard. But I think they're coming around and understanding that, they're honestly, in many cases, they're seeing what their kids are doing on their phones, and they're going, okay, this is behavior that we need to understand better as a law firm. So, I think it's just super interesting as that evolution happens. Companies like ours, frankly, are trying to really bring our customers into the know, so to speak, and understand the importance of things like that. So now let's drill into that a little bit. So really the importance of sort of online reviews and your online presence and what your reputation means. What are you seeing out there now?
Yeah. I mean, look, when we talk about reviews and reputation management and how many stars do you have out there on Google and other sites, it really comes down to two camps. Like, one is hey, somebody's out there searching and they don't know who they want to talk to. And they say, hey, I need a lawyer near me. I need a lawyer near, upstate, New York, whatever. They're out there looking. Mm-hmm. And reviews, we'll talk about that in a second, how they help on the SEO and the search side. And then the other side is what we call social proof, right? Like hey, I found somebody recommended me to this law firm, somebody mentioned this lawyer. And then how do I go out there and sort of, like you said, there's so much information now that's public. How do I go out there and feel good that this is the right person to go look at? Right. So when you look at the stats, sort of 75% of people find their lawyers online, right? They're going online and they're searching. And so the first is as a law firm, you're not necessarily a marketer, and maybe you have a marketer on your team, but really it's about SEO, right? That search engine optimization, how do you show up in the top 2 or 3 when somebody's out there either searching directly on Google, searching on a map? How do you stand out on there when they say, again, these unbranded searches that they're looking for, of not saying this particular law firm, but a general law firm. So the SEO side, and there's 3 big things on that SEO side. The first is your listings information, your Google My Business information, and have you filled that out, and is that accurate? Is that information the right everywhere? And right, that's sort of the number one thing that helps drive that. Two is there's this thing called backlinking, and we don't want to get super technical on it, but essentially where other parties are talking about you and pointing to your website. And the third most important thing is reviews, and how many reviews you have, and what's the quality and the star rating of those reviews. So really big for somebody who doesn't know you and wants to find you, to be found with that. So that's the one side, the SEO. The other, again, is, hey, I heard about this great law firm, this family member, somebody referred me to it. But now I want to go out there and say, hey, are they worth talking to? Do they have, good public reviews out there? And that's a big thing. 65% of people say, that high reviews on somebody, on the law firm was a big influencer in making them choose that law firm to reach out to. Yeah,
it's something that I think everybody's aware of, but really actioning it can be difficult and understand. You mentioned some folks, we have firms, at Liticast that range from 10 people, maybe even less, to thousands of users. So maybe you have a full staff, maybe it's just you, but kind of actioning that is a hard part. And I think obviously we're both technology guys, so we're going to be kind of pointing people towards technology. But you touched on something there, which I think is super important, which is the client experience. And what that looks like from its inception, meaning even from a branding perspective, their perception of who you are, all the way through from that initial engagement. Obviously, if you're talking about a lawsuit or a case or an injury or whatever it may be, sort of managing that process, and then the follow up. But really, what that entire, I know it's an overused term, but that customer journey, what that looks like.
Yeah.
It's sort of a new well, it's not a new concept, obviously, good customer care, but that whole experience from soup to nuts is relatively new, and it's changing. It's actually evolving. So just give us a little more on that, like what you're seeing, as specific to legal professionals and law firms.
Yeah, I think, there's the client services, right? And that's hey, how did my actual handling of my case go? Or there was a problem and somebody, raised a red flag, and how did you combat that? Or, did you do a good job making them feel good in that moment, right? And that's sort of that client services. But if you look at the client, experience across the board, that's really every single touch point they have with your brand, really, not even just the individuals in your business, but when they, again, go online and search for you, what are they seeing? What are other people saying about you? Is there a couple bad things, or there's thousands of great things being said about you? So it starts with that, hey, I'm just starting my journey knowing that something went wrong, I'm getting divorced, bankruptcy, whatever it is, that I've got to start that process and start getting aware and educated on it, all the way through to, okay, now I'm ready to pick a lawyer, and how does that work, right? And when I get to their website, do I have a good experience, right? And one of the things that, like you said, is changing is people expect you to have every form of communication available to them. Right. Mm-hmm. It's hey, some people like to pick up the phone. Some people like to chat on the website. Some people want to send email. Some people want to text. Right. And, nowadays, certainly, not to pivot into what the world is like with COVID, but, the more people can get those interactions and those conversations going on the channel of their choice, the better. So one of the things we talk to our lawyers about, hey, put a good a chat experience on your website as well. That people feel that you're, understand technology, you understand their requirements, and give them that good experience, whether they're a customer or prospect, and just coming and landing on your site. Right.
Yeah. We had Chad Van Horn, who was one of our clients. They're a bankruptcy firm, actually, down in Florida. Okay. And he used the example of, there's a hearing that happens early on in a bankruptcy proceeding, and he had an issue with his clients where they were, it was 20% were showing up to these hearings, or some word number. I forget the exact numbers, but it was, then they started texting their clients as part of their system. They're on Liticast. As part of their system, they started texting a reminder to their clients that, hey, you have a hearing tomorrow at X address, X time, need you to be there, blah, blah, blah. It went from 20% to 97% in a matter of 2 months. And it was just mostly because the method of communication went from email, phone call, whatever, just a text.
Yeah.
And he said that it was literally it was him just thinking about it like in a shower and going, we just got to add this. And they did. And it was a little bit of trial. His point was it's kind of trial and error. Like you don't necessarily know for chance, but you have to at least try. You have to try to, stay close to your customers. On that note, like if someone's thinking about client experience, you mentioned a few things there. Where do they start? Like how do they assess their own firm, and where do they even try to figure out where to take that first step?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of different places you can go. As I mentioned, like the full customer journey is this sort of flywheel when you really get it right. I think starting with that online presence is important, right? Like getting a good ratings out there, getting the good reviews is a good place. And then the next thing, it's so important when someone lands on your website that they feel good about it. And yeah, that can be a full makeover of your website and make sure it looks good and feels professional and all the rest of it. But more and more, what we've learned is, again, that communication point. Can you basically convert somebody, right? They've landed there, they've taken the time, you've done all this work to get them there. Now, how do you give them those clean communication channels to make sure that they're going to convert? That's a big thing. Look, when we talk about client experience as well, there's a whole lot more once somebody's a client, you've done the intake, you're either in a case or they're longer relationship, and you want to be able to get feedback from them as well, right? Continuous feedback and sending them surveys, asking them questions, getting that feedback from them directly is the other real way you cement that experience, because most people will complain and have issues, but they, unless you ask, they don't tell you the good things, both internally and externally on things like reviews.
Right. What's an interesting question, and I was thinking about this, like, are people being more demanding, and do you think the level of service is actually getting better or worse based on that? Like what's going on? Like I know there's a sort of behavioral shift, obviously, that's going on, but what do you think about that?
Look, I don't think inherently.
The loaded question, Dave. I know.
Yeah, of course. I don't think inherently people are getting worse at providing services. I think just more of our customers, more of our clients have a voice and they know it, right? And some of it's the generational thing of people will put any comment, any feedback out there to the world, right? So people aren't afraid to use their voice. So how do we, as a business, make sure we're set up for success? And again, the best way to do it is to ask for that feedback, and that's how you get better. And we've got some customers, one where they started, a bankruptcy lawyer started with about 30 reviews online, and like the guy would just sit there literally losing sleep every night going, what if I get a 1-star review? What if I mess up and somebody blasts me right now and all my hard work goes down the drain, right? And we signed him up. We got him. We taught him how to like automate getting and asking his more clients for a review. He ended up with about 400 reviews that were all 4 and 5 star. And then that goes away because he is doing good work. He is protecting his brand by getting that volume out there of the positives. Because as we know, it's the negative people who are gonna intentionally go do something. You got to ask the people that you like that are doing well.
What do they do today and it's not exclusive to legal, clearly, but those 1 and 2 star reviews can really be a death knell.
Yeah.
How do they avoid them? And if they have them, how do they try to address that?
Yeah. Well, and look, the 1 and 2 star reviews come in two buckets. One is the ones where you actually did something wrong and someone's letting you hear it, and then the other is there are competitors out there and just negative people who are gonna blast you no matter what. Right. And so at a high level, we really do think it's a volume game, right? If you're doing predominantly great work, go get a lot of reviews out there. Go ask your clients. One of the things we set up, and this will be part of the integration that goes live in a couple of weeks with you guys, is when a case closes, boom, send a request for a review. Like, hey, do you mind giving us a review if you had a good experience? There's actually a little something we do as well, where it's like, hey, if it's a good positive review, go put it out there to the world. If you want, you can go put a negative review out there for the world. Or, hey, if you want to give us that internal feedback, come give it to us. But again, if there's the 1 and 2 stars that are out there, again, if it's legit, if somebody is, well, actually one of the tricks is if they just put it 1 and 2 with no comments, it's usually not a real person, and it's usually not a valid thing. And actually, Google, discounts that a little bit. Mm-hmm. But if it's 1 or 2 and it does have some feedback in it, you got to respond to it. You gotta own up to it, offer to fix it, and you'd be actually surprised how many people will adjust their ratings if you take care of them. They're just looking for help, and they think that that's the fastest way to get help. So if you can do that, you're gonna be in better shape.
Right. So Sean from Louisiana, I hope we sort of answered your question here. Sean had asked, what's the best practices for getting reviews? My answer, as running sales and marketing for Litify, is going to get on Litify, because as Dave just mentioned, and you kind of mentioned it quickly, I'll expand on it a little bit, but we're creating an integration between BirdEye and Litify that, for very specifically, a case closes and it'll automate an email or a text or whatever method of communication you'd like out to the client requesting that type of review. And really, as a business owner, good, bad, or indifferent, you have to understand what your clients are saying or thinking about you, and have that action. So I think it is really understanding, to answer your question maybe more specifically, Sean, it's understand what is the best method of communication with that client, and keep that level of consistent communication with them throughout the process. And then clearly, once there's some type of closure to that process, really get that feedback. We've had that, very interesting insights from some of the lawyers we've had on Liticast, who have said, they struggle with that a little bit with some of the folks in their firm. They want the best experience for all of their clients all the time. And, they have to sometimes kind of cajole or kind of kick in the butt some of their staff to do that type of things, because some people would rather just kind of put their head in the sand. Yeah. But you can expose that. And, we're not above public shaming sometimes, making sure that everybody is on the same page, because it is your brand that's at stake. And you need to really understand that and make sure that best foot is kept forward.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The other piece of this is the automation, right? Like that's how you get it scalable. Is we have great ways, for example, to either send out mass texts or mass emails to ask for reviews. But it's really when somebody's in that moment, they've just finished a process with you. They've just paid their bill, whatever it is. Like you can automate that process. Say, hey, great. Give us your feedback, and that's a good time to do it. And again, that's how we've seen people go from hundreds to thousands of reviews in short amount of times, because again, they are doing a good job and should be rewarded for it.
Right. You mentioned something in passing there that I wanted to go back to. You said you had a customer that was just obsessing over every single review. It's actually a fair question. Should they obsess on should they address every single one? Is there some that you just kind of accept it, or what's your thought on that?
Yeah, look, the best practice, and the numbers prove it and show it, time and time again, is responding to reviews just works, right? Even if it's as simple as a thank you for a 5-star review, people, it works. Google actually, again, also gives you credit for when you are being responsive. They see that as a good proactive business. So you should do it. Now, again, it comes back to how do you make it a smooth process? And, depending on the size organization, we have some large law firms where they've centralized it, and, right within our centralized app, they can quickly respond and even, automate some of the responses, especially on like 5-star reviews, just a thumbs up, thank you, even kind of like rotate it automatically, so it doesn't seem like it's automated, but make that scalable. And then again, set up the right processes. I mean, the worst thing is where you get these 1-2-star reviews where somebody writes this long paragraph blasting you for something, and you don't even know it's out there, right? So like step one is like, have it all centrally, be alerted, have the right escalation process for when somebody does do that. And then again, make it easy for your firm to be able to respond, because that's again, what works.
Yeah, we've heard time and again that the biggest complaint typically is around communication. I mean, traditionally in legal, and in today is no different. The methodology in which you do it may be different, but But that is by far the biggest complaint, all the time, where it's just, I didn't know what was going on in my case. My lawyer wasn't being communicative. There was this long stretches of time where I was unclear what the next steps were actually going to be. So I think, and it's certainly, it relates to reviews, but it really relates, again, back to that client experience thing, where you can avoid all that as long as you're doing it. And when we've, customers on Litify, we've had folks build out some very interesting workflows where at certain steps through the process, they knew that the customer should be treating, for example, for an injury. And a reminder goes out, are you treating? Oh, have you spoke to Dr. X, whatever it is. And they
Right.
basically put all these sort of milestones into the case process where there's this automation going on. And meanwhile, frankly, a lot of times it's more just like a yes or no response. It gets logged within their system. They understand that that's going on. But at the end of the day, the customer looks at it and goes, wow, that was a pretty back and forth good relationship I have with my law firm. Meanwhile, the lawyer's across it. He understands what's going on, but it's not physically him making that call every 2 or 3 days or whatever it might be.
Yeah, what we've seen is if you can get them early, sort of even in that mode of we're texting, right? Like, let's just like cut it down to that simple. Like, people just like, it's a quick, you get eyeballs on it. People are seeing it. People are responding quickly. You don't have to have all the fluff around the whole thing. You can, so what we've done is, again, set up that secure one-to-one texting, or even, client to team type texting, where you can start that dialogue and just keep it going. We even can take your like landline number and make it textable. So like when somebody looks up that number, it's all one contact record, one number, and people just feel comfortable just getting on those type of threads.
So switching gears a little bit, the monster that is Google, right? We I think some folks struggle with how to interact, how to influence, how to really, what do they buy, what do they don't, and I think Google, while on one hand it's an amazing tool, an amazing resource, on the other hand, if you're intimidated by it and don't necessarily know where to start, it can be just that, like you actually just sit sort of in paralysis because you don't really get it. Just maybe share with the audience, like what are some ways to interact with Google? What do you or really any ratings service? I mean, Google's obviously the big one, but like, how do they kind of change maybe the perception, or how do they, engage them? And what are some sort of tips and tricks you've seen in that side?
Yeah. I mean, they're obviously the king. They've got like 87% of the search traffic out there, 2 trillion, searches a year, going on. So they're the big dog. But again, this is about, especially sort of on the discovery side of it, there's a lot of people that still use Bing, use Yahoo, use a lot of other services out there. You'd be surprised. And one of the nice things we do is we centralize all that stuff, and both in terms of you want to make sure your information is accurate and correct. We've got that, and then it's also ability to go out to hundreds of different sources and pull in all of those reviews from everywhere. So yes, Google is the big one, and they're most important, as we talked about before. Getting your Google My Business sort of locked in and right, which we can help you do as well, is key. But there's a long tail out there, and there's a long tail of clients out there of different ages, demographics, different regions that go to different sources. And again, the last thing you want to do is only focus on Google and miss all the other places. I mean, the other big one probably is Facebook, right? Like that's the other place where ratings and reviews and people are communicating a lot and spending a lot of time there, and having your reputation really solid there is probably, in my mind, the next biggest one. But again, if you can at scale get that long tail of all those other sites out there, that's the real power. Right.
No, it's excellent. One of the things that we talk a lot with our clients about, and again, Litify being sort of case management, data management, there's oftentimes a behavioral review that needs to occur, meaning like what particular people are doing for their job within the firm, all the way from a receptionist to an intake specialist to a paralegal to an associate attorney to a managing attorney, up and down the chain. What people are doing, how they're doing it, how they interact with their the fellow staff, and really what are the best practices around there. So I want to translate. I know how to speak to that from a Litify perspective, because we're talking about, again, case management, data management, reports, actionable data, that kind of thing. Talk to it from more of from your side of the house, which is how do you kind of encourage all the staff to be thinking about client experience, thinking about obtaining that positive review, asking the right kinds of questions? Like, what does that look like on your side?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the firm's brand, like overall, right? But that's the other side you have, is that every individual gets to be a part of that brand, right? And everything they talk about externally and how they interact internally with the clients, goes a long way, right? And you could have, to your point, Laura doing a great job, some paralegal that upset somebody, and it's not known, and all the rest of it. And again, look. Again, especially the larger firms where there's a lot of different touch points, the more you can be asking, the better, right? And again, the more you can, and this is sort of ties to the surveys and the internal feedback, or NPS is what a lot of people talk about, right? It's like, we've got some firms that after every sort of touch point, every sort of billable activity, there's like an NPS going out, and it could be a quick little text thing, hey, you get a 7 of this, right? Like, or you get a 10, right? Like things like that. Just keep everybody on their toes, but in a good way, right? Because I think you said actionable, right? Like, one of the things we look at is we look at all the commentary coming in, and we've got an AI engine that'll basically pull out, hey, these are the themes that people are talking about your business, right? Like, hey, they're, on the review side, for example, hey, a bunch of people are talking about, your billing practice, or, a lot of people are talking about, how great you were, in front of the judge, or whatever that is, right? Like, you can pull those themes out, and that at a high level goes, but internally you can also action very quickly. Hey, this person just interacted with this person, and they gave us a negative review. Let's go dive directly into what's happening there and take action.
Yeah, I think you touched on two key things there. One is timeliness, and one is sort of prioritization. And any one of our engagements with clients, we talk about that quite a bit, because it's it's a little more complex than early bird gets the worm, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's really just being reactive, being responsive. And we have a lot of instances where you'll have interaction with a potential client, and then you don't get them a retainer agreement within the next whatever hour. And the client, the attention spans are, and my kids are the perfect example of this. Like, it just goes away, and it's like you go, but if you can address it in an expedient way, and you have that type of experience, your hit rates and your success rates are so much better. Really are.
One of the things we did, and it sort of ties to that timeliness, is a new product we just launched actually this week, is around handling your referrals. Right. There's so much, especially in the legal space, around, hey, I got a referral from a family member, from a friend, whatever. And again, same thing, timeliness, like, there's people who are like, say, hey, I just had a great thing. And we now give you the ability to say, hey, either give me a review and put it out on Google for the world to see, which, has a broader approach, but maybe a little less personalized. And we now have the ability to say, hey, Terry, go out and tell, pass this on to your 10 closest friends, use coupon codes and stuff like that to give discounts or whatever that sort of incentive is, but allow you to also track all of those and get those additional leads. And, again, especially during COVID, where things are different and people are looking for new ways to, let people know that they're, open for business, or what kind of courts are open, or all the rest of that constant communication right now is pretty important. And if that can come not just from me as a business, but from somebody you trust as in your network, the better. Yeah.
One of the things that I was just thinking about as you were talking there, and we struggle with this sometimes, because we really, we depending upon the firm, the size of the firm, and what their practice area is, and their, frankly, even right now, like that point in time, what they're working on, we always try to get firms to think about, particularly managing partners or owners, working on their firm versus in their firm. Meaning, how do you actually assess what is going on? What are these priorities? How do we sort of, create this this perfect flow and this better client experience on the other side of that? Maybe just talk a little about, like, I'm actually just curious for myself. I'd like to take this information back to my own sales team, but like anything there, and stressing the importance of some of this stuff, and getting a client to think about it in that context. Is it, we could be dramatic and say, if you don't, you're screwed, or if you do, you're great. But like, I'm just trying to drill in a little bit to the nuance there of trying to get someone to understand really why this matters and why you should take a step back and have an understanding and have a point of view with your staff on, and really your staff and your clients on this type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about the client experience as sort of this umbrella. The other one is sort of like the voice of the client, right? Like that's sort of like what you're looking to get, and sort of the holy grail, which has been proven time and time again to drive revenue. If you can really be listening on all channels to your clients and understand what's going on, that's how you're gonna make the right decisions, and you're gonna make the right choices on where to invest and where to improve. And again, that's, to me, that's what's going on outside in the world where people are talking about you there. It's when somebody's engaging you one-on-one, how do you take that voice and make sure that, one thread that, if you just listen to one phone call or you listen to one text, thread, great, you get one insight. But if you start putting them all together, all of a sudden, wow, you can really see what that brand is like. And then again, as they become customers or clients, that's sort of the most important one. How do you keep them happy? How do you keep them engaged? And if you can bring all of that together in one place.
I'm not sure I understand.
Siri listening to me.
She's always listening, Dave. She hears it all.
I know. If you can listen to all of that entire voice of the client, that's where it becomes really powerful. Because again, I've been in these situations as well where you have one angry customer and they just raise their voice so high, you almost as a business can over pivot to that stuff, right? And sometimes there is just an angry client, right? Like, hey, I expected to get $5 million from this dog bite, and okay, I only got $5,000. Okay, well, right. I did my job as a lawyer, but maybe we didn't set the right expectations, or that communication piece is, as you mentioned before, is so important.
Yep. I've heard, over a beer or two, I've heard some pretty interesting stories of situations like that where, regardless of how you try to set the expectations, it's just unrealistic. I break this rule every single Liticast episode that I do. I really try to stay away from COVID. We've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I am curious your view on, we have this new reality that's occurred over the last 3-4 months now, sort of from a marketing, online, and even beyond that, just sort of maybe kind of spreading the tentacles a little further. What stays and what goes? Like, let's just say next week there's a cure. There's a cure for COVID. Everything can go back to normal. But what, from a behavioral standpoint, do you think kind of sticks around? Like, what has changed that's maybe here to stay?
Yeah. I mean, it's another terrible sort of buzzword, but the digital transformation that we've all had to do, right? Like, I mean, that stays, right? Like, it just, everybody now expects you to communicate with them on whatever channel they want, right? And we talked about this a little bit earlier around whether it's text messaging or chatting on the website, or or phone calls or whatever. Like, they just, everyone expects you to have a digital presence, whether that that's ordering food. People are now buying cars without going into the lot. Like, I think a lot of that doesn't necessarily become the only way people interact, but certainly becomes a new norm. On the doctor side, the virtual visits are probably going to stick around. I imagine, on the legal side, a lot of those virtual consultations are going to, they're there, right? Yeah. Are people going to go back to court? Probably, right? But maybe there's some hybrids, like that ability to just do everything online. Now, look, I think you and I are both, longtime sales guys and extroverts, and we're probably ready to get out and, hug a lot of people and be out in the world again and do it. But like, right. There's a blend that we're just going to have to live with from now on, that customers and businesses are just going to have to be more tech savvy and have that kind of technology supporting them to support their clients.
Yeah. It's funny. We've had some very lively debates on some Liticasts around that. And I've had some attorneys on who've said, it's the pageantry, like specific to sort of like court proceedings and things like that. They're like, it's the pageantry and the in-person component that makes society what it is. And it's the fabric of it. And I've had equally successful and equally influential attorneys on the other side go, hey man, I'm fine with Zoom hearings. I think it's totally, I can understand the body language just as well. I'm good. I don't need to get on a plane and fly to California, whatever it is. Like, it's so funny. And I agree with you. I think there's going to be some elements just because of convenience and just because of sort of, what we can get done in a faster way. Cause we have partners of ours who their entire business is built on finding someone local to cover things for them because they don't want to fly people or have to hire people. And like that, I see that stuff sticking around because why not? Like if you're okay, and we also joke that the kids running in the background in the Zoom and my dog, literally during a Liticast, I had my dog jump up on my lap. My point, and people are cool about it because it is, we're all human beings. We're all dealing with this stuff, but I see that sort of tolerance level getting bigger. And if the efficiencies and the effectiveness on the other side of that is better, why the hell not? Why wouldn't we leverage technology to do things like that? So I agree with you for sure.
Yeah, and it just, well, as long as the kids can get back to school and then then there's that good separation. That's the one that I think is the most critical here.
Oh, for sure. Get them out of the house. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So Dave, just maybe as we wrap up here, just kind of summarizing, for the firms that are watching or people who are, in the legal profession, like how do like some reviews and some things, like how would you sort of, you're starting a law firm tomorrow, like what would really be the important items you'd concentrate on first and on an ongoing basis? Like what are those, is it like, is it some reviews are more heavy and weightier than others? Is it really, I know we're talking about client experience and a good, positive thing, but the top three things, if you will, that really kind of stand out to you that someone's got to be cognizant of.
Yeah. I mean, again, especially getting going, right? Like building out that brand, originally and getting a strong presence is key, right? And if you've got enough of a base of happy clients that can speak for you, that is so valuable, right? It drives the social proof we talked about. It drives that SEO and having people find you when they're doing those unbranded searches. It's just so important to have not only good reviews, but the volume of good reviews out there. So, that's a big one. The other one is, again, too many people, find you, land on your site, and jump too quickly to the next thing, right? So being able to engage them and convert them when they come to you, right? Like get them into talking to somebody live, get into that intake process is so key. And then just listening, for the long term, right? Like just keep asking those questions, just it feels too hard or feels weird to ask sometimes, but like, again, people want to speak nicely about you. So many people have these great experiences. Just think about that it's the noise that's usually escalating, and you can drown that out really easily by asking your good client.
That's excellent. I would add a little more color on some of that, which relates our two businesses together. One of the things I always tell clients, they'll ask, say, okay, yeah, we want to move on to Litify. How long till I'm done? And I have to sit there and go, you're never done. You're never going to be done with this process and that really is part of the quote unquote new normal. It's an iterative process. People move too fast. Things are changing too quickly. Technology, behavior, just who knows what, and I don't want to be negative, but who knows what the next COVID is going to look like and how we're going to react to it. Like you can't, maybe back in the day it was more like we set up a system and we run the system for 5-10 years, whatever it is. Like, it's not that at all. It is very much iterative and reactive and understanding and pivoting and whatever buzzword you want to use. But that's the reality of it. You really need to look at something as an animal that kind of lives and breathes and moves around versus some type of finite, stagnant thing that you just do and then forget about it. You can't do that. You can't think that way.
And look, you want to automate as much as possible, and you want to take the simple stuff and not make it a pain. And you want, that's how it scales. Mm-hmm. But it takes some thought. This is your brand. This is your experience you're giving to your clients. This is your, system of record, in your guys' case on this. Like, how do you, if you're not paying attention to that and continually improving it, then it's a waste. So
it's a waste of time. I agree. So on the chat string there, Frederick put up a resource on the BirdEye website. So birdeye.com. Go there, folks who are watching or listening and want to understand a bit more about what BirdEye does. I am incredibly excited about our integration together. I think that's going to be powerful for our clients. That should be done within the next. Dog barking and doorbell ringing in the background. Perfect case in point of us being tolerant, right? But yeah, I'm super excited about this integration. I think it's going to drive a lot of value for our clients. Dave, and any parting thoughts? from you?
No, like you said, I think these are the two great systems that'll go, even better together on how do you handle things internally, and then how do you deal with people externally. These two things can go really well, and we just all got to keep our head up and not hide from the the 1 stars and the be afraid to ask and because you're afraid what they may say.
Right.
You go out there, you gotta ask, and so you can handle it if it's something real to deal with, and we're here to help any way we can with that.
Sure. I'm sure you have an excellent staff. So in conclusion here, thank you to thank you to Dave. Dave, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you coming.
Great seeing you, Terry. It's been way too long since we've gotten together in person. One of these days.
One of these days when we get back to normalcy, I'd love to have another beer with you. But thank you so much for joining on. For our people in the audience here, please follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We have a Slack community. We have like a gazillion. Pony Express, however you want to get to us, just, please follow us. We're going to do more Liticast coming up. We have a few interesting things coming down the pike. We have one with Southern Poverty Law Center, one of our clients who's going to be really sharing with the work that they're doing nowadays. We have a schedule that'll be out. We'll also share some of the resource components about BirdEye, about Litify, about our integration together. Please stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody have a great day. Have a great weekend. And again, Dave, thank you so much. Be good.
Take care.
Okay.